back, everyone. Uh, we're doing more Elixir and Phoenix. So if you are joining me for the first time, right, just to reiterate, I am a very experienced software developer and engineering manager. I've been, writing code since almost 40 years now, off and on, some from a very young age, actually. So what I am doing now is learning a new language, right? I've done tons of programming languages, Objective-C, Swift, Python, C++, or I've done Erlang back in 2008. I did a little bit of Erlang, so things like that. I do a lot of Go these days. I do a lot of JavaScript, obviously, for any of the front-end work and whatnot. So what I am doing is learning Elixir from scratch. This is, I think, my sixth live stream. I do about half an hour a day. And Elixir is a very foreign language to me. It's Ruby-ish, but quite a bit more functional, I would say. Mixed with a lot of the Erlang-ish kind of. It's built on the Erlang VM, so it brings a lot of Erlang with it, if that makes sense. And then Phoenix is like the Elixir version of Rails, and some very very smart people I know are into Elixir and Phoenix. And this seemed like a good opportunity for me to learn it as well. I have no experience professionally or even as a hobby writing Elixir. I think I saw one presentation on it, at a lunch and learn a year back, but certainly nothing I absorbed or remember. So everything I know about Elixir, for all intents and purposes, I picked up, plus the weekends, like 8 days ago. Starting half an hour a day is all we're doing for this, right? So when you're following along, a lot of what I'm doing here is again trying to be a good example, trying to show you how I learn as as having learned more than 10 plus languages over the course of my career and whatnot, and how to do so rapidly, right? As a recap, we're doing a simple web app. We're doing a to-do list for all, fairly straightforward. We'll do more complicated things as we go on, because you can't really keep to the simple stuff forever and ever and whatnot. So we're mostly relying on documentation, a little bit of Google, but the Elixir and the Phoenix documentation is kind of what's keeping us going for now. And then, of course, I have a chunk of notes here, right? These are all the the concepts, Elixir, Phoenix concepts, questions I've come up with, the answers, right? Some vocab and terminology, right? Some magic, magic naming conventions, stuff like that, as well as some commands that we've come across and whatnot. So we will continue on for the moment, just to see. So when we last left off, our intrepid hero had just gotten the to-do list to render, the database rendering, instead of manually coming up with manually coming up with, typing out 3 different to-do lists, right? We have the ability to programmatically, given a data structure, in fact, and this is just a list of lists, right? And whatnot. So that means we can simply add another one here. Paste. So if we do another one here like this, and then maybe make this true, right? And we save our Elixir, our Phoenix server, which is kind of like the live server. I don't know if this is what you use in production or not. We haven't actually thought about production at all. I can't tell if this is like a debug. I think it is definitely a debug system, because it's got a lot of debug output. But this is what we use to output. And I expect to see 4. There it is. There's the 4th one there. So there we are. That is our happy little programmatic getting data in there. Now, we are just learning, right? So I'm not super happy with the way we have lists of lists and we have strings instead of actual atoms and whatnot. There's probably other ways to do this, but again, this is part 6, half an hour time. So roughly, we're 3 hours roughly into our Elixir and Phoenix journey, and so we've gotten pretty good so far. The next step, I think, for us, right, is to get really good at some of this stuff. Either go deeper into views and templates and to do more interesting and complicated things, or to start looking at data, right? Any modern web app, you're going to have a data store of some kind. Typically, this is, MySQL or Postgres. Sometimes it's, one of the NoSQL variants like Mongo or whatnot. Postgres is my personal favorite, and I got a lot of reasons why, but we'll save that for some other time. I can rant in another way. But for now, I think, let's see here. What are my options? All right, I think I will be, what do we want to do here? Yeah, I think we're actually going to go into the database stuff. I think, as ugly as this is, HTML and CSS is not something I probably need to do on stream. There's plenty of resources for that. So let us go along, right, and go through. Time to go through the Ecto stuff. Here, it's time to do some data storage. This is exciting. All right, so here is our documentation, and of course, right, we have our notes, and we're just going to start off, data storage, reading and writing to a data store is a large enough thing that I'm going to give it its own section. All right. This is the ORM or storage. Library, I guess. Library. All right, so now we know what Ecto is. All right. Supports 3. No Ecto flags. You can see here this during the bulk of my adventure with all of you here, that we have just been getting this connection error because I built it assuming that there is a database in place, right? So what I'm going to do is there is a handy app to actually just run Postgres on your local machine, right? And that is called Postgres.app. And I think if I just do this, it should just work. Postgres.app. And there's a wonderful Postgres Postgres. We're going to do a new one here. We're going to do a new server. So this is our AMADN stream server version 12. Yeah, that's fine. Port create server. So we're going to create a new one. Data directory. All right, let's choose a new one. Already in use, that doesn't seem possible unless this is the one it created for us. Server settings, did it already create one for us? Oh, that's why it already created one for us. We'll just rename this one then. Stream. Playground DB. I don't know if there's any. So this is just a local DB instance we can run. Takes no time at all. This app is very well maintained, and it's basically the easiest way to create a local instance, right? The easiest way to create a cloud instance is to use a managed service like RDS on Amazon or any of the other managed hosting providers that give you a Postgres or MySQL or something like that. All right, so we have a database now, and it's running. This app is free. The author of this, the primary author, also has an app called Postico, which is like an interface to see all your tables and data, and I highly recommend as well. That is a paid app, but during the bulk of my trip, well worth it if you use Postgres, obviously. So shout out to that author for I'm a very loyal user. Completely unaffiliated, for whatever, full disclosure, completely unaffiliated, but a very happy user. Okay, so we are done with that for now. Oh, look, we have a different error message. It's actually connecting, but we're not saying hello web. Okay, well, that's interesting. It wants a database called hello web dev. Like, without even reading the documentation, we can see some interesting things going on there. So what do we do here? Is there an easy way in here? All right, this is where I might have to open up the Postico. Double click this. Postgres wants control terminal. Okay. I don't want Postgres. That's not what I want. Oh, that's handy, but that's not what I want. Terminate. terminate. I don't want to do this in the terminal, just because on the stream, I think you get a better idea if I do this databases with Postico. There you go. If I can do it with the GUI, I think it's a better visual experience. But, you know, maybe not. Some of you may not not allow. We're on stream. We'll assume not. So here we have our local host is this Postgres instance, and you can see that it's got the 3 databases in there. We're just going to create a new one that this thing expects to see called Hello Web Dev. And we'll see how we go there. Let's see if the error messages change. I think they've just stopped, actually. That's cool. Let's try again. Let's see if just the existence, let's see if the existence, okay, of the database itself, we don't need you anymore, is enough to get this thing to stop complaining. Even if it's a completely empty. You can double click this, we see that there's no tables, no nothing, no views or anything. Yeah, sure enough, no more error messages. That's good to know, right? So at least it's not yelling at us in the big red. No data storage, no data storage, no data storage. It is not doing that anymore, so that's nice. Now, I'm super familiar with Postgres app and Postico, but if you weren't, you know, those would be things you put into your notes, right? All right. Newly generated Phoenix projects, Postgres by default. Oh, very good choice. All right, so we don't need the schema and migration generator. Okay. There is a Phoenix Gen schema task. Did I see that down here? So we use Ectos to generate an Ecto schema through the Phoenix Gen schema task. Let's generate a user schema with name, email, bio, and number of pets field. Oh, this is awkward. I don't know if I like this. But we're going to go with that for now. So apparently, right, use mix Phoenix Gen schema to bootstrap models. I don't know if I like that. But we're going to see what we got here. And in particular, so we've got user, so user is the model name, so that must be the Elixir model name. Users is the table. This is string. Okay, so we've got field name and type. Bio, string, number of pets, integer. All right, so we're just going to go with this for now. It does migration, so we can hypothetically change this at almost any time. So let's go to, we're going to do this in the Visual Studio terminal, just because I want to see what's going on here in this bottom one. This is the live output from the mix server, but I also want to be able to do operational things here. So we're just going to paste this in there. Oh no, I don't want the minus. I don't want that minus sign. I may have to. There we go. It's just not going to work. Did it work? Does the minus do anything? All right. So what do we got? I saw something be made. We created lib hello web user ex. Okay, so this is new. And we created a priv repo migrations. So repo must be the data storage name thingy. Formatter, I don't know what that is. We'll come back to formatters. Okay, so here's a create table. Yeah, this is very kind of active recordy, isn't it? The Rails thing. So what we got here, so repo, we've already heard of this. So here we've got a question, right? You know, Now I have an explicit question section here. It's important to write down the question. Repo. Is this data storage class? It's not doing much other than kind of bootstrapping the Postgres thing here. So probably seems not sure. So here is what was created for us, right? And if we go to our Postico, and we actually have a migration table. That's interesting. So it creates the migration table for us, but it does not create the user's table, right? We have to run the migration to do so. In fact, I see this here. So use mix, then use mix not generate, migrate to edit new ex file necessary. So this is nice because it gives us a chance to muck around with this, add things, modify things if we need to. I like that it includes timestamps. You know, I always put timestamps in pretty much all of my tables, things like that. So stock false change set cast validation. This, I'm not sure what this is. Just change set. All right, we're gonna. That's a new terminology for it. Ecto repo ecto change set. This is a piece of vocabulary. I mean, I know what change set is if you think of like in terms of Git. I'm not sure what a change set is in terms of Ecto and Phoenix and whatnot. So we'll be going through that soon, hopefully, right? So a lot of learning going on. Ecto is definitely more alien to me than most. We usually use wrappers around, you know, simple or not full-on ORMs. Like when I do Go code, I use wrappers around SQL statements, so it's more like plain SQL than it is, you know, full-on active record style ORMs. So this is going to be an interesting adventure for me. All right, so I guess we can just go ahead and do this mix ecto migrate. Mix ecto.migrate. Now, another thing about learning, you know, another bonus point about learning to learn in particular, right? If you want to just run a command and get it over with and then look it up in the future and run it again, you know, something you don't think you're going to run often, copy and paste. That's great. If you want to remember a command, you should type it out, mix ecto migrate, because there's something about the way your brain works and how the actual motion of your fingers makes it so that when you type it out a command, you know, especially the second or third time you type it out, you know, assuming it's not like, you know, 500 characters long or whatever, the act of typing it out helps you remember it, right? It's the notion of your brain makes connections. And if you store something in one part of your brain, you know, you have, you know, a certain percentage odds of recalling it in the future, right? Now, if you're able to store something in multiple parts, and in this case, it's the typing, it's the fingers, it's the motion, it's the you know, the actual command itself, right? Then you're more likely, if you can connect the command to another thing, right? You know, migrate is a database function. I'm very, you know, a database, not methodology, like a concept I'm very familiar with. You know, the more things you can connect it to, the more likely you are to remember in general. All right, so migration worked. We're going along here. It occurs to me that you all can't see all of this, so I'm just going to tuck this over a little bit. There hasn't been anything interesting there. It's just kind of a little thing. I should put a little dummy window there one of these days. So, okay. So we ran the migration and we saw roughly the same thing that we're supposed to see. XM. So there's okay, so mix has, so environment is controlled by mix, right? That's an important thing. Environment, that's, you know, dev, prod, etc. Is a mix setting variable. I'm just put setting for now. It looks like an environment variable, but the environment variable and the mix environment, there's some terminology conflation there. So I'm going to use setting. We're looking at a database server connected to order. We should see our users table. We did. You and I already did that. And we see the users table there. Now, if we go in it, it should be empty, but we see that the name, email, bio we created, the number of pets is there, as well as the created and updated, right? From this timestamps line, right? And the ID is auto created for us for there. Structure-wise, ID they use big ints, and it's sequence, meaning it automatically increments, like 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we create, for example, if we create a new one like this, so new row, right? We're not going to fill that in because it's going to fill in for us, and we're just going to aim at in. All right, email is just kidding. Hi at example.com. The bio is aim at n, and I have 1 pet. And then if we click save changes, no, all right. So they want us to actually put something here. I think I can just put this. There you go. Yeah, boom. There's our thing. It's ID 2 because ID 1 would be the one that we tried and failed to create. So it increments regardless of whether you succeed or not, which is good database design, frankly. Okay, so we have that. We took a look at the migration generator. I'm not too interested in the migrations right now. That's fairly straightforward, and I think we already peeked at that. Yep, same thing. Repo. Okay, so here we're going to get some answers about repo. Does this thing have links? Okay, I can direct link to this. And by doing so, when I find answers, right, and especially if the answers have a direct link, I can just paste them right next to my questions, right? The number of questions I have is a good sense of the more questions I have, right? That means roughly how good is this material teaching me, right? If I have a ton of questions, it's a good thing because I'm learning and expanding, but it also means that whatever material I'm learning is not awesome. It's not super thorough, right? Because you don't want to be generating questions every 30 seconds, right? You're not learning too much. But at the same time, if there are no questions, like what are you missing? What are you not getting? Like what's being left out, or are you taking too long because it's going through every tiny little detail, and so answer every question as you go along, right? Even the ones that you might already know the answer to. The ratio of questions to answers, right? Here in my little question section, I'm pointing at it, but you can't see my fingers. But down here, and you can see, hopefully, I do the big fat mouse thing. No, it's not doing it. But here in this question section, right? The ratio. If I can just make this a bit bigger for all of you. View. Oh, there's a zoom in. So dot. This question section here, right? That's goofy. My understanding of the material, right, is the amount of answers to questions is a good sense, right? If I have a ton of questions and a ton of answers, that means I'm going along. I'm progressing very, very well on my learning journey. All right, back to what we're doing here. So. The repo has 3 main tasks. I'm taking a peek, and the bandwidth is not great today, so apologies if there's any audio errors or dropouts. I'll double check the video afterwards and see if I can't do something to make it a little better. 3 main tasks. Okay, so repo. That's where we were. Repo. What is a repo? So repo ostensibly stands for repository, meaning a data store of some kind, right? Is it the OTP app name? Set the repo stream main tasks. Configure our database adapter. Okay, so bring it in ecto repo this is this use statement here. So I'm pretty sure that's like a inheritance style, start with this as our base, right? Hello.repo is inherited from, and that may not be the correct, perfect way to think about it, but hopefully it gets you from this ecto repo, which is and then defines a couple of things here for the ecto repo to kind of do its thing. So we've got the map to the database. Okay, nothing too exciting there. We saw that change sets. Okay, so this is already, right, here's something, right, where we had a question and now we have an answer. What do we got here? A pipeline of transformation our data needs to undergo before it will be ready for applications to use. Okay, so this is interesting. This is a pipeline of transformations when data traverses between data store and Phoenix app. All right. These transformations. All right, well, this is cool, right? This is basically saying that we've got a pipe between the database and the Phoenix app itself, right? And we can put arbitrary chunks of code or logic in between, meaning that we can transform it in any way, like turning a string into a date or something like that. I don't know. Maybe even really complicated stuff. Maybe there's natural language processing where it can turn today into an actual date, or tomorrow, or last week, or something like that into an appropriate duration or timestamp. So that's kind of what I see when I see these things, right? There's validation is obviously a very obvious one we can do that comes built in, right? Make sure that you don't create a user without an email, for example, or validate your email such, do they have an @ sign? Do they have some dots in there somewhere, right? Technically, you don't really need a dots, but in modern email, you kind of need the dot. So things like that, all right? So, and this tells me that the syntax here is an Elixir syntax, and I'm pretty sure that's the pipe through. Take something, pipe it through this thing, and then pipe it through the next thing, right? So you're chaining functions, right? Take the output of this function and shove it into the next one somehow, right? And we can, so back to the Elixir documentation, that's the API. What was it? Bar arrow. I wonder what they call that, bar arrow. Bar chevron, bar greater than. Siegel's data types expressions. Is there, am I not typing it right? Is bar arrow not a thing? Operators. There we go, left to right. What is this guy here? So it's definitely an operator. It's definitely not comparison, term order. It is, I'm getting close. It's not. Oh, there it is. Pipeline. That means it is a pipeline. Wow, that was not helpful. Um, well, what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to put this somewhere in here. So bar greater than. Oops, that's not bar. Uh, means pronounced pipeline is a pipe chaining. Okay, so now I can see where I get this. This is straight out of shell syntax, right? Operator. I don't know if this is the correct terminology, but conceptually, this is what I got going on, right? This is where the bar comes from. Like if you do cat hello, right, and you can pipe it to something else, like grep h, and then you can pipe that to echo hello grep h. What do we want to do? Word count. So we take hello, we shove it into grep, and we shove the output of that into word count, right? And that's more or less what we're doing here. We're taking the user, we're shoving it into this cast function, and then we're shoving the output of that into the validation required function, right? So boom, 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 and they use the same pipe, right? I'm not sure how I got that, right? Is this grep h doing something that I don't think it's doing? Yeah. Oh no, that's right. Word count. I remember now. Word count is lines and paragraphs and letters. I think no, lines and words and letters. So we have one line and one word and 6 letters if you include the then you know the return. All right. So what do we got? We got smart about pipes and chain sets. Today's we didn't actually do anything except run migration. We didn't write any route. We only generated code with the tool. But we now can look at this and more or less understand the bulk of what's going on here. We had 2 new questions and a couple new answers. I don't know if there's anything more about repo. I guess it's just a generic data storage object relation mapper interface class thingy. Basically the ecto-based class. But we'll find out more as we go. Excuse me, as we go along. Right? Thank you for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your evening.